Chris Norris here at Jamplay, and today we're going to go over some left and right hand synchronizing exercises using scales, different things you can use as a warm-up, just things to get your left and right hand going together. So get your metronome out, or you can use the Jamplay one and get that set, and we'll get going. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is going to be these are all going to be left and right hand synchronizing exercises, but the first one is also a very, very good warm-up. And you're going to chart this out. Basically, I have it here if my trusty sidekick Vince wants to show the camera somehow.
Absolutely, Chris.
And what it is numbers representing each finger. For your left hand, you have 1, your index, 2, 3, and 4, your pinky. And you write down all the possible combinations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, and then 3, 1, 3, 2, 4, so on, and then starting with the second finger, 2, 1, 3, and 4. And what you're going to do is play those in that order. Now on any string and any combination of frets, and it's good to mix them up, because these strings are thicker, so you want to get your fingers stronger for those. Tension's different up there. So pull your metronome. We'll start at 100 right now, and you can do these in order or randomly. So the first one is just going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to start here and start on quarter notes with the metronome. And what you want to do is, doing all these, you want to go for every possible combination of things you can do. So I did that alternate picking. Now at this slow speed, you can do it all downstroke, all upstroke, you can get really wacky if you want to do down, up, up, down. That'll be a lot harder at faster speeds, so if you can get it, amen, more power to you. Then take that same one, and you can go from here and do the next succession. Like I have written down 1, 2, 4, 3. Maybe on a different string, different place. And there's two ways to practice this, with one going in succession, all staying with your quarter notes, or staying on one pattern and going to eighth notes and building up and then moving on, whichever way you prefer, or you can alternate them every other day. So for example, I'll go to, let's just go back to that original 1, 2, 3, 4 here, doing eighth notes. Some of these patterns are going to get really hard, even though it seems like such a simple concept once you start picking up the speed. Let me just find one that I have trouble with. That's 2, 4, 3, and 1. When you pick that up to, say, 16th, it seems kind of easy now, but say we did push the metronome up from 100 to, say, 120. Which one was that? No, I don't remember which one that was, but say we'll do 2, 3, 1, 4. It's pretty difficult at those high speeds. So start out at 100, 80, whatever's comfortable. Your quarter notes, move up to your eighth notes, so you got 2 notes per beat. This one's kind of very, very tricky. I'll move it back down to show you triplets. 3 notes per click. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And since these are 4 notes, your patterns are gonna start on a different one for every beat. So after a couple repetitions of it, you'll finally come back to where your original starting point was. So just say 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's pretty easy at triplets, but once you get to the other ones, and then then once you get up to metronome 120, 140, they can get pretty difficult. So there's that, keeping in mind the alternate picking, the different types of picking, basically just charting it out. I believe this chart will be in the supplemental materials, so you can find it there. And just practice with it and go from there. And let's get into a new one now. Okay, so with that first exercise in mind, we're going to do the second one, which is pretty similar, but you're going to be using scales and not this chromatic pattern. This is also really good for warm-up, but I use it more once I'm already warmed up, because you're going to try and get into some pretty high speeds with it, and you already want your fingers flexible. The basic idea is to take a scale, any key. I'm in D tuning right now, so I'm going to be using right here, we'll be on this F, D, E, F. So it's going to be an F major scale. If you're in E tuning, that's going to be your G. You find your metronome. Well, first of all, the scale. You can use major, minor, Lydian, whatsoever, but for the purpose of this, we're going to use just this major. That shape, which notes are going to be, play them in D tuning, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, and so on. And you can even continue up in the patterns of the scale, but we're going to stick right here in this register for right now. So take that scale, you got your metronome, start out at, say, 100 again, and just basically run the scale to that metronome. Again, the best way to start this is probably alternate picking. And so on, coming down. I like to always have as many possibilities for every exercise as you can. So when you get to the top of there, you can put a pause or just keep continuing. And so on down. Then once you get that a couple times, you then move to eighth notes. 2 notes per beat click. And then before I get any further, I like to, from here, move to economy picking, which I touched on earlier, but I'll explain it again, which is when you go down from string to string, you can always be doing a downstroke. When you come up, you're always doing an upstroke. So when you have down, up, down, and alternate picking, when you come to this note, you would do an upstroke. But here, you're going to go down, down, and just let that pick fall through the strings. And you can practice this, the same way you did with the quarter notes and the eighth notes, using this economy picking. Move to your eighth notes. And you can run through this all the way up to your triplets and your 16th before you try the economy, but just to keep things interesting, I like separating things in sections. So from there, you can pump your metronome up or go to triplets, 3 notes per click. You can do it once or run through a couple times, for example. I always just tack on those little notes just to make sure I stop on the one. Now you can pump up the speed here, or I like to always go to at least 16ths and then move the speed up. And that is 4 notes per click. Now, you know, like I said, you can use other scales. If you know this F or G scale very, very well, you know, you can go to your Lydian mode, or your Mixolydian, whichever you want. But we're going to stick with this one scale just for the purpose of keeping everything solidified for this exercise. So there, people will always tell you increase your metronome in increments of 8. I don't know the purpose and reasoning behind this. I don't like to do that because then you get into funky numbers. So I like to do them by either 10s or 5s because you're always looking at that number. It's easier for me to read. So here we're up at 110. So we'll start with the 8th notes. And to keep this a little more interesting, once you get up and you feel comfortable with this, because this is a pretty, you know, even slow speed for me, you can kind of mess around and play with it, to, you know, because this is all about your right and left hand synchronizing. Something like that, for example. So just keep working with that. You can move it up the next pattern in the scale. Play with it that way. Now coming up, there's so many variations on this. I'm just going to show you a couple of them, and you can make up your own off that, and this will hopefully just get you started on the possibilities, things you can do with this exercise. So now I'm going to show you the different variations you can use, and you're going to use everything I talked about, you know, changing the metronome up, the different styles of picking, all that stuff with these different variations. So I'm just going to run through a couple, give you a couple ideas, and then you can come up with your own from there. I have the metronome set 100 just to show you. And one of the first ones is you're going to take the scale, do the first 3 notes like you were. I did that with not the metronome, but then the next part, instead of going again, reverse that order. Your 8th notes. So there's variation 1. And then what you can do is reverse that for the second variation. And then on to the next one would be to just do the patterns backwards. And then when you get to the top, you could reverse it and go forwards. And again, these aren't going to really have any musical merit or value to them. This is strictly just a technique exercise. But one cool thing about using all these variations is if you really want to get a new scale fingering under your hand, to do this with the new scale, it's going to help you immensely in learning that. So we'll go on to another variation, and this is going to involve string skipping. And what you're going to do is pattern, then skip a string, the next part of the scale, and come down a string. Then back up. So all together through the scale. And then what you do with that is you can add more patterns to it, more notes. That would be the pattern. I'll do it again slow. So you're string skipping and then coming back down. And then you would start on this string again with that pattern. Those two together. And that's actually part of a solo, that pattern from John Petrucci from the song Erotomania from Dream Theater. And I just thought it was not just me, tons of people thought it was such a really cool solo. We use that as our exercises for technique exercises and warm up. And once you get the metronome up to speed, that's my favorite one, because that actually sounds cool and you could put it in other solos. Let's see what 132 would sound like. Let's go a little faster, make it sound a little better. I'm in a different scale now too, by the way. But let's try a little faster just so you can get an idea of what these things sound like once you get them up to speed. Now we're at 171. If I can do that. On this guitar, it gets a little tougher. So one thing that most people kind of don't really pay attention to is the positioning of this volume knob really hampers my technique when I get up to this string in this area on high speeds. But let's go for broke and try super fast, just to amuse ourselves. Let's see, 196. A little too fast, so I'd bring it down. That's also a good practice technique, is to go a little bit higher than you can play at. Play it a couple times, flub around, go back down, and keep doing that, and eventually you're going to find that 196 or 295 million, whatever you're trying to get to, is going to become a lot easier for you. So moving on from there, let's do a couple more variations. One of them right here. Seems pretty simple, but that's actually a really good one. But the main right hand building technique that I want to show you is these variations. Really good to do to a metronome, but you're going to do, all of these have been using one note. Now you're going to do 2 strokes per note. Then you can move to 3. And 4. And let me change this real quick here. I'm practicing it in a distorted mode. These are really good to practice with clean, because you'll learn how accurate your right hand is. Especially when you get up to higher tempos, like going up to, say, like 133. I'm not following my 10 rule, like I said earlier, but try the speed. And I actually just did an error. When I started that, I started really hard and grinding and digging the string too much. My muscles tensed up because I'm trying at a faster tempo. You don't want to do that. You need to be relaxed, and that's one thing having this clean tone will definitely help you do, is you'll be able to hear if you're pushing into the string too hard. So again. Since I heard that and was paying attention to just that little detail, I can fix that and correct that. So when I do want to go up from 133 to, say, 147, it's easier because I've corrected all those things. So there's just a couple variations on those, and you can come up with your own and play them through different scales, and hopefully, I mean, just on those and every different combination of picking patterns and paying attention to how hard you're hitting the string, to making sure your pick is just not angled all funky and your hand's not funky, and just all that right there, you could do that hours a day for months, and your technique would totally improve. So hope that keeps you busy for a while.